Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation, here to start a brand new series with Mr. Zach Hussion. How you doing today, Zach?
Amazing. I'm super excited that we're finally doing this.
I know we've been talking about it for a long time,
Yep.
and the time is right, the fit is right. It's time to talk about Value First revenue, and full transparency, like finding ways to talk about sales without falling into some of the old habits and status quo stuff has been challenging. Um, but that's what we're here to do. That's why we're calling it Value First Revenue. And if you're new to Value First, it's basically just my noble attempt at helping companies break free from industrial age thinking, so we can embrace some AI, some AI value, leverage some AI. We're not trying to get rid of all the humans here. We're trying to let them go build all the relationships, Zach. And the interesting learning curve that I've been on since joining, I guess, SaaS officially as a consultant after, 15 years in industrial and manufacturing. I was like, okay, why? When I was inside, right? I'm the marketing guy. I'm the come and lead digital transformation, Chris. It's like, okay, let's do it. And nobody wants to move, right? We can't boil the ocean, Chris. All these things. And I'm hearing this whole SaaS industry, marketing consulting, guys like Gorilla 76. I'm like, why is none of this getting through? Right? It makes so much sense to me, right? Then I come over, I'm like, oh, okay, we're just putting SaaS labels, or we're putting manufacturing as the word. It's still a SaaS page, and over time, I've come to really appreciate, like, a lot of what we're going to talk about is learning from these manufacturing sales veterans that have always owned the entire relationship, and they naturally do not work in silos. And that's where we're going back to. That's what AI can enable for every industry. And I'm really excited to get into that with you. And I'd love to hear, like, why, like, what drives you to talk about this topic?
Well, when you think about what really moves the conversation, whether it's selling somebody a product or service or getting budget approval for some project you're working on in a closed door conference room meeting, revenue is what typically drives that decision. It's funny because a lot of folks can't really tie it back to revenue well. um, but if you can't really tell a story that's going to help convince the leadership team about how this is going to help them increase revenue or get to that revenue faster, um, it's more work. I've found over the years that money talks basically, and I've had the privilege of sitting in both marketing and sales leadership roles. So I've been on both sides of the conversation, and it's interesting how you have to approach it differently, whether you're in sales and marketing, and also how difficult it is to get budget approval for sales versus marketing. And I've seen a lot of teams struggle. I've seen a lot of friction over the years. I've been, plenty pissed off myself sitting in those meetings. And I feel like if it's going to be that big important thing, and the 800-pound gorilla in the room, then it's worth talking about and focusing our strategy around. Because at the end of the day, it's like, oh, great, you generated 1,000 leads, but it didn't make me any money, right? Or you automated this task, but it didn't really lead to faster revenue, right?
Right.
There's cost savings. Of course, that's a big part of the conversation too. But if we're talking about revenue, we're not, we can't exclude cost in that conversation. But yeah, so it's always been a personal passion of mine to try to fix this problem.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there as a sales rep for many years, just being like, why is this so freaking hard? Why are there so many roadblocks? Why am I spending so much time doing this thing? Why is this so clunky? And I've said it before on stage in front of people. I was not the best sales rep because I kept on drifting into CRM and the operations side of things. If I'd focused more on sales and less about fixing the CRM, I probably would have been on the top of the leaderboard. But I just couldn't. I was consumed by making that process more efficient. And that's kind of what led me to where I am today.
Yeah. That troubleshooting mindset just takes over. Like this, it's got to be better.
Yeah. There's a better way to do this, right? Why are we doing it this way?
Yeah. And so for anybody watching, it's not going to be like the manufacturing sales show. We don't want to make sure that's not what the vibe we're giving off here. Because it really is like, there's so many lessons to learn across like industries. That's a big part of what Value First is when I started thinking about this alignment problem that we've never been able to solve between departments, right? And it's not just marketing and sales, it's sales and service, it's sales and engineering,
operations, right? Finance, you name it, right?
And so I go to Claude and I'm like, all right, AI friend, pretend marketing, sales, like the whole org structure did not exist. How would you organize a company? Like, what would that even look like? Right? Because at that point, I was thinking about the leads trap. And we're here, one of our goals is to help leaders overcome things like, well, I can't change because the sales compensation works this way, right? That's one of the most common reasons we cannot like see an opportunity and just go after it in so many organizations. And that's really disheartening to watch a leader like say, oh, that's common sense that we should go sell this over there. But I don't have anybody in that territory, or there's already somebody in that territory, but it would be so hard to train them up and get them good at that market. But they're there. So I guess we got to ask them to sell this whole new like thing or sell to this whole new audience, and knowing that that's not going to work. Right. But we have this structure in place. So that was how I got to this point. And Claude came back and said, let the value flow. Like,
I was something I'm thinking about the whole time is that like, forget about your revenue goals and just focus on like what's important and creating a positive customer experience and being helpful and answering questions. And like the money will follow. If you look at any awesome brand that's out there that's just done really good, good work, they don't have to invest a ton in other things. Like people just naturally gravitate towards that and keep coming back for more because they just do a kick-ass job of making people feel special, and heard and not, dragging them through a really friction-filled process to get an answer.
Yeah. And that friction is what we're referring to, because in order to let the value flow, it's like, okay, you got to remove this barrier and this barrier and this barrier. And some relate to the systems that we're being asked to use. Some relate to the team boundaries, where different people in different parts of the org, they have different goals, literally, that do not work together. And that's where, being that guy that was internal, like, come on, sales team, like, could you just trust me, like, just use this here. And it's like, no, bro, I know how to build relationships and build trust.
Yeah.
And it's the only part of the organization, I think, where I can pick up the phone, start the relationship, continue the relationship, get a verbal, even get payment over the phone. I don't need a system ever, right? Until the money's already like coming my way, right? So to suggest that I need to use a system when I've been doing that for years, and you start to look at all this, it just go back to before there was, SaaS.
Sure. Before
right?
there was the internet even, right?
Yeah. And when you think about what's happening right now, this is where I took the long walk to tie it back into those who might know SaaS a little bit better than manufacturing.
Sure.
The concept of GTM engineer right now, right? That's being popularized by Clay. Clay does not hire people that are good at GTM engineering, this role that just came out of nowhere. They hire people that know the problem inside and out and know the customer inside and out. It doesn't matter if they've been in marketing or in sales or in service. I think that is a new label for full funnel account manager. Right?
Well, it's funny because like we went from a time where you didn't have this CRM and you were able to sell, and the game has changed multiple times. Internet brought on ease of access to information. People are further through the buying cycle before they need to talk to a salesperson. And meanwhile, we've now burdened the salesperson with a whole bunch of tasks in the CRM to do, right? And a lot of the folks who were doing it pre-CRM, pre-HubSpot, pre-whatever, are the slowest to adopt. And they're like, well, it's been working like this for me for a long time. I know what I'm doing. I'm not an idiot. Get out of my way. Let me sell. Like, you're incentivizing me to go sell. Let me sell. But then, it's like, okay, well, we need to find a balance because your input into this database now helps the leadership team make informed decisions. So we need you to give some input into this, right? And more often than not, it's usually bloated and we ask people to put in too much information, and that creates friction there as well, right? And so you see people pushing back or just not using it. And now we've gotten to the point where we're like, okay, when we have AI, we have all these tools that are listening and can do things on our behalf, let's let the salesperson go back and sell again and just go do what they do best. And meanwhile, we're going to, us on the operations side of the business, right behind the scenes working HubSpot, let's say, we're going to go out there and we're going to configure it in a way that it is just doing these things for you in the background so you can go sell, right? It's going to listen to your calls. It's going to listen to your meetings. It's going to, look at properties that you've maybe had to manual update and do something else. And it's going to be this intelligent CRM on steroids with this AI boost that now lets you go back to do what you want to focus on, right?
Yeah. And it's been, that's one of the most common metrics thrown out there is like sales people spend like 30% of their time like selling. And the solve for that's where in some spaces, like the spaces where SaaS is least adopted, that's just totally not true. And you're including like drive time, windshield time, like time at events. And that's the thing, like we can now turn all of that time into recorded unstructured data in the CRM. And if we can do that, AI is now there and we can see a path. Like before, it's kind of been a pipe dream of how do we actually move this 30% up closer to 100%.
Well, you couldn't do anything with the unstructured data really well. And there was so much of it.
Yeah. And that's where like some of that unstructured data is in the head of the salesperson. And when you can find ways to get that out, right now, it's just easier than ever to get that out, because where we need to find ways, especially in a lot of industrial spaces, like there's an aging out problem that they've been staring in the face for like 15 years. It's still amazing to me that I'm starting to understand why, but they've had a really hard time understanding how they're going to fill this gap. And that's the beauty of it. When I first started hearing about AI and I started hearing the podcasts every day, I was like, okay, if people haven't digitally transformed yet, like, good luck. Like, you're not going to be able to leverage AI. But a few months went by, and now I feel more confident than ever when I can take a picture of a paper process and just put it into Claude and say, document the process for me. It's strictly a mindset shift right now. No matter how far behind you think you are, you can catch up like
Well, yeah, because
that
you could say, well,
right
I
now.
have my data so messy and I have all these problems. Okay, we'll use AI and fuzzy logic and this and that, and clean it
Right.
up. And you should be able to clean it up now with the tools that you have access to way faster than you did in the past and more efficiently and higher quality.
Yeah. And that was one of the big things coming out of Inbound. And we do want to show on the series a lot of how when you approach HubSpot in this way as a platform to really drive revenue for the business, like it can definitely be a barrier. Like, all right, we're going to put this thing in, you're going to have to do all these new processes, but it can be delivered in a wholly different way where there are no barriers because you're just bringing in, oh, that email that I was going to have to write, now I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that debrief I was going to have, that just went from 30 minutes to
Right
like 30
there.
seconds.
Yep.
Right. That's why step one was like, get the context into HubSpot, and then we can enable the team. Right. But a big deal at Inbound, and it's still even hard for me to understand all the ins and outs. That's why I'm excited there's some projects coming up with Bill Barless, and I'm going to be doing a show with him after this, of like bringing just spreadsheets in to the CRM without building data architecture to support them, and then being able to use that spreadsheet across the CRM.
Yeah.
Right. Really like a massive leap. But
Sure.
the use case that I want to share is I was helping a team with pricing, like trying to build a pricing source of truth, right? Because that source of truth right now is a printed binder on 3 different desks with notes up the wazoo in each binder. And I literally sit there. I took a picture of each page because there's complex information like tables and like this many things, and number of these things, and these many variables equal these price, like basically CPQ in a binder, right? I just took pictures and I put them all in Claude, and Claude like gives me a set of pricing rules, like
Mm-hmm.
all these things, right? And in that moment, that's really when it hit me, like, oh, digital transformation just got 100 times
Oh,
easier,
yeah.
right? And those are the kinds of things that are going to help you, break down and like give yourself permission to be a little bit behind and not be caught up, right? And maybe not like keep up right now. Everybody is having issues keeping up
Sure.
with the pace of change right now, not only with HubSpot, with what AI in general is, but if you can tweak your mindset just a little bit, right? In all of the content I do, and a big central pillar of Value First is about collaboration with AI,
Mm-hmm.
not AI replacement, right?
It's like I look at it like when I'm golfing, right? It's kind of an individual sport. Even though you may play against somebody else, I really care about my score the most, and I'm looking to see, did I shave a couple strokes off this year on average? Is my handicap going down? It's going to hit a point of diminishing returns, I'm sure, as I continue to get older. But it's like, if you feel like you're behind, there's no bad place to start. There's no bad time to start. The only bad time to start would be months from now, right?
Yes.
Start somewhere with these initiatives. Get control of your data. Start cleaning things up, adding a little more structure. A little more process. You don't have to just jump into the portal and just start doing things, but like take some time to step back and start planning and putting a strategy together for like, what is our, data governance look like? What, how do we, what's our standard operating procedure specific to our company in HubSpot? And how do we get, the data in here? And how do we account for the fact too, that like people are not perfect and you are going to always get messy data going into the system. Again, don't rely on the user to capitalize the first name, or make sure that they have the title in there exactly how it should be, and to take the LLC off of the company name. So when you enroll them into a mass email, it doesn't look funky. It just have the system do it. And there's ways to do it now.
Yeah.
So again, you're competing against yourself. All right, well, last year we had zero control over our data. This year, now we have much better control over the quality of our data. Next year, we're going to start dipping our toes into some more AI tools. And it's also kind of dangerous to be the first one to try all these things, because a lot of them are in beta. Things are still being worked on. We've all experienced something that works awesome one day, and then all of a sudden it doesn't. And if you build your whole process around that, then things just start breaking. So I think it's worthwhile to be a little cautious as you dive into these things, experiment, learn, make sure that you're not just blindly doing these things without understanding the downstream implications.
Yeah. And that has been a bit of a bright light right now, as uncertain as everything is. There's an understanding, because it's touching us all over the place right now, like personal and professional. And that's the key. There's such a inevitability to what's happening right now when you have it like available on your phone, and Google search is changing into AI mode, and Alexa's gonna have AI mode, right? So we're exposed to this quality of life upgrade, right? So you can't avoid it, right? As a business, even HubSpot, like getting harder and harder not to see the little sparkle icon everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal, well, my goal on a lot of the content is just get you to click it one time, like, and understand what's happening, because it's really fun. It's different than it used to be, where, be working with a sales team and you didn't know exactly the tool that was going to do it. But for some, it was going to be like the meeting link. They're like, oh, okay. I could get used to it. For some, it was going to be email templates,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some just logging the email into the CRM was going to be like, oh, the light bulb moment, right? Now it was still us having to deliver that, right? In some way. Now those sparkle icons, Breeze Assistant, it just take once to try it, and for it to be good, for you to feel like so powerful in terms of like adding another like skill box, like on your resume, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to several people about this phenomenon, and that's where the inevitability is coming from. Like the barrier to entry is like almost zero in some things that have been very high, like, because no matter how easy it's been to use a CRM like HubSpot, like you can go sign up for free and you can start using the tools, you still had to, like, you were still on your own to like walk through the system, learn how to do things. And now you have AI right there to ask questions to. And like, if we can help with AI, like conversational literacy is how I refer to it. Because again, it's very easy, like SaaS likes to do, like, oh yeah, just come get this library of prompts. I already did the work for you. Just use this prompt and just put it in. Well, guess what? If you don't know how to deal with the answer that you get back, that initial prompt might not help you very much.
Sure. It's like you look at, okay, so the technology has evolved, but the people haven't. Meaning that you're either curious or you're not. If you're a curious person, then you're the type of person that would take an Excel sheet that's been around forever and learn some more advanced functions and functionality in there to make your job easier, right? Um, I have clients that have had access to agents and Copilot and Breeze now and all these things for months and months and months and months. And some of them probably don't even know that they exist other than me telling them about some of these things. And even that they know, there's, you have to be that type of person to be curious enough to say, I'm going to start clicking on these sparkly icons and I'm going to not give up when it doesn't give me what I want on the first try. And I'm going to go that extra step and I'm going to look at some more documentation and watch some more training videos. Because I can see that this is going to be where things are going. And so it'll be advantageous for me to learn how to do this stuff. And so I don't, it's like, it's the same, we still have the same problem.
Right.
Regardless of the fact that technology's gotten better.
Yeah. And the shift, I think, is at least what I share with admins or people responsible for the success of HubSpot, which is usually, that's like realization under number one for most businesses. Like my job is selling and making money for the business. It's not HubSpot. It's not doing stuff in HubSpot. There's one person in the org usually, and that's the admin. Like their job is HubSpot, right? Everybody else, I love giving permission on these calls where it's like, first of all, like question number one, and it's really hard to ask us up front and remember to do it. But when you get into a messy portal and like nobody seems to know what or why HubSpot, like you have to ask the question, okay, is HubSpot business critical for anything that you're doing right now? Right? And you'd be surprised how many times the answer is no. And then it's like, okay, we have to give ourselves permission. If it wasn't required to get you your job done and the business is still successful and making money and you're getting your commissions, I don't blame you for not using HubSpot.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you're in the HubSpot owner role, or the admin role, like your role shifts a little bit now. And it's been refreshing to see HubSpot understand this and this concept of HubSpot everywhere. Like they've shifted from trying to get everybody inside of HubSpot. They just know it's not going to work, right? We've been trying it for 20 years and 50% adoption rates. Like, okay, what can we do differently? Well, what we're doing differently is we're telling everybody get all the business context in HubSpot and then enable your team, right? And enablement of your team now is going to be teaching them how to interact with AI, to understand data. And that's where I agree there's some curiosity required to learn how to do this. But what I've seen is it's very hard to get certain personas curious about technology, right? But what they're always curious about and why they've been successful is the human condition, right? And how do I help this person out that says they need help? And I have the exact product or service that can help them, but there's something in their way, like mentally, like salespeople that are great at building relationships get over those like human irrational tendencies and they love that challenge, right? And to support that, they've created some elaborate setups where they're ready to stop and take a voice note, right? Record a voice note at any time when anything pops into their head, right? For those people, you just figure out how to get the voice note into the CRM now, which is easier than ever. It's like open this app instead of that app, like standalone Breeze or HubSpot mobile app. They can do the exact same thing now, right? Other guys I've seen like that are on the road a lot. You like look at their car and they've got all these things. They can email anybody from anywhere at any time, but that is the channel. Like you try to ask them to go log in here or there. Like, no.
Oh no. Yeah. Here all the time. Hey, I'm traveling right now. Can you go do this thing for me? Because it's too hard for me to do it. Right. I don't have time or I don't have access. You know,
Right.
I can't log in from my phone. I can't, hey, what was the last discount that we applied for this thing? Can you go look it up for me while I'm driving? Um,
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I think one day it would be great to be able to just like kind of talk to Breeze and see.
Right. Well, that's where we're going, right? Like, because we
That's
can already do that
Yep.
with, ChatGPT and Claude.
Yep.
Like the HubSpot mobile app and the Breeze standalone app. You can hit the microphone
Yep.
and start talking, right? And that's where it's a much different ask of an admin to coach your team how to do that.
Yeah.
Instead of like log in here or tell me what you want.
Yeah.
Because admins should be rejoicing. It takes a minute to understand like your job has to shift. Like you still have a ton of value. You're just teaching people to do something different.
Well, it's, teach a
Right.
person to fish versus feeding them a fish.
You don't want to be the
Yeah.
gopher getting the report
No.
or going to find that discount. Right.
And the sales rep doesn't want that either. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing pisses off a sales rep faster than saying, hurry up and wait.
Right.
I'm ready to go. Oh, sorry. I can get you this thing tomorrow. Okay, great. You just totally blew any momentum that I had going on this thing. I'll shift gears, and then it just becomes unorganized and there's no flow to it. Versus, why wouldn't you want to have access to the information at your fingertips when you want it?
Yeah.
That sounds awesome to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to call anybody and say, can you run this report for me? Can you pull this, export this thing for me? Can you look this thing up? Can you go do, it's just, what a waste of time.
Yep. And they will go through an immense amount of pain outside of that moment to make sure they're ready for that moment. Right. And that's why one of my missions in life right now is to get people telling me how much time like AI is going to save me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, that's kind of cool because when you look at HubSpot and you look at some of the agents that are in there, one of the KPIs that it tracks is, well, how much time did this thing save you?
I know, but
see that,
I've never met a salesperson where that mattered that much to them in terms of like, even with meeting links, because there's some low-hanging fruit when you start using HubSpot, right?
Meeting links is the lowest hanging fruit, I feel.
But there's enough uncertainty to say that I know my process works and I'm okay with sending 4 emails back and forth and taking 15 minutes to do it. I'm okay with that pain because I know what the result's going to be if I do it that way. This new thing that you're showing me, and I've started a new meditation recently, and I was just like, slapped me in the face when this part was said, but it was about embrace uncertainty and let go of certain pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is, so I look for other things like, and the example I've given recently to the HubSpot team is, if it's great if we save time, but if you don't tell me or somebody doesn't help me understand what I'm going to do with that extra time, and that it's definitely not going to mean I'm creating less value or I'm doing less things. Like I have 2 daily podcasts now that did not exist prior to some of the tools being available to me in HubSpot. And if I had been doing those podcasts, sure, it was 4 hours, it would have been like 2 to 4 hours a day. But the fact is I wasn't spending that time at all. Right. So there's opportunities that we can now generate more value.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just like anything else, like, you say, hey, do this thing. Why? Show me what's in it for me. Why do I care? How does this benefit me? So it may not be enough to say, hey, use these meeting links. It makes scheduling meetings easier. Okay, I don't know. I guess I didn't think it was that hard to schedule meetings to begin with. But maybe if you break it down to them and say, well, you don't add any value scheduling meetings. You add value booking meetings, and you add value having meetings. And what would that do to your commission if you could book more meetings and have more meetings? Do you think that you'd have more deals on the table and those would end up being, commission in your pocket? Oh yeah, I guess you're right. That does make a lot of sense. Or it's like, okay, you're not doing that stuff in the middle anymore. Now you can go spend more time prospecting. So you can, or now you can spend more time being strategic, really. Like, how are you going to go and tackle your territory?
Yeah. Debriefing the last win, like actually digging into that new set of data that's shown up in front of you, and understanding how to attack it.
Yeah, because we're getting people access to all these tools and information now, but we should all agree that a percentage of your time should be spent playing in the data and looking and learning. If we just fill up your time with other stuff, it's like, great, we have all this information in the system, but no one's leveraging it now.
Right. Yeah. Use the data you have. For the love of God. You have so much.
At the very least, like, we'll save you time. So now you can use this really awesome data set to look at trends and to help you find ways to be more competitive, because the game has changed again, and you have to continuously innovate and change your approach to how you sell. Right? The path to revenue is different than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, it is. And it's never been easier to do some of the things that we're talking about. Because coming back to like how we got here, right? And why it's been such a interesting, insightful learning curve of living this life between manufacturing and SaaS, right? It's not hard to tie it back to when Salesforce basically created the lead object, right? To make it easier to capture leads and manage them separately from the real data, the people that we care about. And then we need people to qualify all those great leads that are coming in. And you see this system. Now we need to advertise more. We need to spend on Google Ads to get our lead numbers up, right? There's a system that's been generated. Meanwhile, like, the insightful part is coming from spaces where they haven't been. They've just been going to trade shows still and managing relationships, going knocking on doors. That's why COVID was really interesting. But it didn't change that their focus has always been on get me in front of somebody, like connect me with somebody so that I can have a conversation and build a relationship.
Yeah, but you just touched on something about, like, when you mentioned like Google Ads or generating those leads. And so I think, what was the latest stat I heard? Something like 60% of all Google searches don't result in a click. So search is declining rapidly. People are spending less time on Google and other search engines, more time on things like ChatGPT, right? Perplexity, Gemini, you name it, right? They're looking for answers there. The good news is the conversion rates are a lot higher, right, on those platforms. But again, like, if you were a company that relied on leads for your sales team that were coming in as a result of you producing helpful content on your blog all the time, and you do nothing now but do the same thing that you've been doing, the sales team is going to be knocking on your door saying, where are all my leads? So, it's, again, the game is changing, and the sales rep's job is changing too. So, maybe you're spending less time doing administrative work in the portal. Well, here's something that you could be spending more time doing, right? Sitting down and having conversations with real humans, spending time becoming a thought leader on LinkedIn, right? Creating your own personal brand, engaging and interacting with other folks out there, right? It's not enough to just, you can't expect that you're going to get a LinkedIn Sales Navigator license, in-mail the shit out of people, okay? Or sit there on your social profiles and just talk about how awesome your company is and how you just landed this $20 million contract or something, right? It's like, who cares, right? Like, engage with me on a more personal level in the comments and then you start seeing that these, this is really what people want. And this is how you build these relationships, not just the mass email that says, here's this resource, click here. It's coming way down into this micro level now, real granular in terms of how you sell.
Yeah. And that's where like comes back to these silos that have been created, right? And once you can unlock people, like from some of these words that we use, like what we talk about on LinkedIn and why it's such a value for there, like when you're going to an in-person event, so like FabTech, IMTS, Inbound, like they're all the same. Like there's people around looking for networking, looking for opportunities, looking to understand the current state like of the industry. They're there for a reason, right? And they're open to signals like from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And like you don't know, it's like if you're not in front of them at that time, like if they're on the other side of the show floor, you're not gonna understand who the hell they are, what they're like. This digital space where we think we're entitled to that person's data just because they asked somebody else that is a competitor of yours, if like they showed they're in the market to that person, right? Like you're not entitled to that information for any reason. But what you are doing, it's business development, right? As you walk around and you're looking for opportunities, you're understanding audience, like, do I have the right thing? Can we create the right thing for this situation? Like, it's not sales, it's not marketing, it's understanding the problem.
I was just gonna say you're a sales rep walking around a conference, okay, and you've done very little in terms of marketing or branding, raising awareness, any kind of pre-show promotional anything, right? You're basically a nobody walking around, unless you're like a huge brand that's already established these things. So, but imagine now you're that same rep who goes to the show, and your team has been putting out helpful content. You've been connecting with people on LinkedIn who have a high likelihood of maybe going to that show, or that they're going to that show. And now it's like by the time you're walking around the show and you end up meeting someone, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're Zach. I remember. There's some familiarity with your name. I've seen you on LinkedIn. I've seen you. You commented on this thing, or I've seen your company out there with those really witty ads that you've done. It's like, and it just the two of those things together is what makes it happen, and a lot easier with a lot less friction, and leads more to revenue than you send somebody to a show and you spend a lot of money on travel, right? T&E is expensive. Trade shows are extremely expensive. And I see so many times people go to shows, they never prepped. They just, they expect the fact that, we've been to the show for the last 10 years, and more so people will be worried if we didn't show up, as the mentality, which but yeah, I mean, imagine how much more successful you would be at those if you kind of brought everybody together and aligned on how to go about actually generating some good conversations there.
Yeah. And because the fact is, like, we've got to be top of mind, like, as often as possible, like with the speed of like the customers having to experience this, right? So all this work we do to come up with the perfect message, send it at the best practice time, and all this stuff, like, if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm not opening up the email, like, no matter what.
It's timing and luck in a lot of ways, and there's too many variables at play when you send that email or make that call. I use the analogy, it's like shooting a quarter through a train window from the top of a hill 100 yards away, and the train's moving 100 miles an hour. And if you miss that one little window to take the shot, that's it. You got to wait until the next train comes by. And that could be weeks, could be months, could be years in certain scenarios, versus, just the old inbound approach, which hasn't changed drastically. There are a few little tweaks there, but if you are top of mind and people have the problem, they think of you and you're the first one to call, right? And I mean, you're a perfect example of this. You've spent an ungodly amount of time creating content here in the last 12 months. I praise you for that hard work. You've done an awesome job with, really getting out there, and your name is becoming more household. You're becoming like the Mr. Clean.
My name, my beard definitely is.
Yeah, but
Maybe.
you're as part of your personal brand, right? Just like me and my orange hat right now.
Don't
But
ever let me fool you into thinking that's not by design. Like the beard definitely plays.
sure,
Right?
but it's sticky, and people remember. And you've now gone from a year ago, starting out on this kind of journey, to now your name is up there on LinkedIn all the time, along some other big names that you probably said, I'll never be up there with these guys, but like here you are, and you are a perfect example of how this stuff works. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I'm on this with you today, right? Because we talked about that. My own personal professional network, as it relates to Hussion Bound and the work that I do, only will take me so far, right?
Right.
And at some point, you can't rely on that. And that's the same thing for everyone else that's out there. I don't care if you're a $50 million or a $500 million company or a $1 million startup. It's like your professional network only gets you so far, right? And it's great to have. It's very useful. You can pick, like you said, you can pick up the phone and you make a deal with someone that you've been working with for 20 years. Sales is important, right? You are a vital part of the organization, extremely important. You're the closest to revenue. But, you can't just expect to get the same results, if things have changed.
Well, it's harder and harder to force it.
Harder and
right?
harder. Yeah.
Like you got to be ready. And what we're talking about is, imagine if you've decided, which most people do, like that's why you spend the money and time to go to the show.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say it's your number one show of the year. You're always looking forward to it because every conversation you have is a likely opportunity. If that show was happening all year, how often would you be there?
Right.
Right. That's LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah.
And if you know that if you are there when somebody says, man, I've got this problem, right? And you're the one to respond, it's real-time business development like you've never experienced. And for even average salespeople, it only takes one of those times to then like, oh, okay, now this is how we have control over our own destiny, is that we're there. Like, so in your train analogy, you're shooting the quarter like constantly so that whenever the train comes by, you're there to hit the window.
Like I'll give a shout out to my boy Caleb over at Supered. He's a sales rep over there. He is constantly sharing ideas and thoughts and commenting and engaging and interacting with people and producing things on LinkedIn. I'm not a Supered customer. I think it's a really cool company. I think they have a really awesome product. It's just not for me today. Maybe one day that'd be really cool to get to that point where I could, leverage them. But Caleb stands out to me as like somebody who is following that real good, that playbook. Even Crispy over at Super, like that team, they've really done a really nice job, I think. And there's plenty of other teams that are doing it as well.
Right.
That one just kind of stands out to me because. Perfect example. I was at Inbound, right, in a crowd of 12,000 people, or give or take, and there's Caleb.
Seconds, you're like, oh, that's super.
Me, and we're just like, yo, what's up? High fives, like we were friends. No one's trying to sell anybody anything, but it's like we know that if somebody has a need, right? If I happen to have a need for Supered or something that solves a problem for me, like a Supered would, I would call Caleb because I know him right now. Right. And not even that well, just like I'm hoping that when people think of B2B manufacturing, revenue operations, and HubSpot, they think about Hussion Bound. Right. And that's what I purposely set out to do, is to kind of carve that niche out for me.
Yeah. And that's the key.
But people now say, oh, yeah, you're the manufacturing guy that does these things. You should talk to so-and-so.
Yep. Give us 2 months. because when you bring that level of purpose and intention and you show up every day, like it just happens because it's way more unique than most people think. And like that reaction that people have at events, it's like you can see Supered from a mile away.
Yeah.
Right. And that is not just people trying to have fun, trying to be different, trying to be obnoxious, like some people think.
Yeah.
That was super intentional from Matt Bolian's strategic, like that's a strategic decision that we're going to show up on LinkedIn, the whole organization in this way. You will not be able to avoid us if you are in the HubSpot space.
It worked well.
Right. And it continues to work. And that's where it's free to do that on LinkedIn, to show up on LinkedIn in that way. But again, bring us back full circle to what we're going to try to accomplish. A very specific culture is required for that to work, for people to show up in that way, in a vulnerable way.
Yep.
A very specific team compensation model exists for that team. And it doesn't matter who goes and gets the pipeline, who closes the pipeline. Everybody's working together towards the same goals. And we're going to dig into how it's a lot easier than most people think to show up in this way.
Yeah, I can't wait to start breaking down like what's broken about goals and what's broken about commission and what's broken about, the system that prevents reps and leaders from like allowing the teams to go do this stuff. And then the other part of it is just the education piece, right? Which is why we're doing this. A big part of it is that a lot of people don't know that these are best practices, that these are successful ways of doing things today, and that the old ways of doing things are they might work for a while longer, but what side of history do you want to be on when when your customer's eating your lunch because you thought that it was good enough to just keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, we're gonna do our best to help you over that hump. There's so much opportunity right now. I'm a big abundance thinker.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get after it every week, including clips from all this content. There'll be blog articles, all that good stuff, trying to help you break down that opportunity, so then we can apply that business strategy inside of HubSpot to help you realize it. So I'm excited to start this journey with you, Zach.
I'm excited too. This is way more fun than like prospecting and doing some warm calling and sending out messages to folks to try to hit that quarter through the train window. So I'd much rather spend my time hanging out with you here doing this kind of stuff and helping people, a broader audience, than just trying to take the sniper shot.
And indeed, and it's going to be fun in 2 months when we find ourselves talking about similar results that prospecting would have had.
Oh, and listen, this is not prospecting. Like the sniper shot is still very, very necessary. It's just, but when you're like founder-led sales, it's just like, it's impossible. It's so hard.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Helps when LinkedIn's throwing your face around instead of you having to do everything on your own. So that's why we're here, and I'm excited for the series. So until next Wednesday, at 4 Eastern, 3 Central, we'll be back with Value First Revenue with Zach Hussion. Everybody have a great week. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks for having me.